Riveting viewing for the stream, straight up. Looks like it is. Good. All right, let's do it. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who will bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and today I am joined by a very special guest, Checkers. How are you, mate?
Fantastic. Love being back here. It's best podcast.
You didn't sound that enthusiastic about that.
No, I'm actually so keen. I bumped into Case last week and I said, man, I'm doing Keeper League on Monday. I'm so keen. I'm keen to be back.
That's good.
All right, now I'm keen.
All right, good.
No, I'm actually very excited. We did a couple of podcasts last week, and I was saying the whole week, I said, no, I'm most excited about Keeper League because it's just chatting about footy.
Yeah, that's good. What other podcasts were you on?
We did JP Drake's podcast last week for Drake Supermarkets.
Yeah.
And
is that just about chalky milk or what?
Oh, it was about all sorts. It was like a 2.5 hour recording as well. And then we did Bevo's Legends on Friday.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, no, this is fantasy. Yeah. It's just good because like making myself go on, like when I go on this podcast, it just makes me research, makes me look into fantasy. So it makes it helps my research, makes my week good.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the reason why we started it in the long run. Like we're always talking about it and chatting about it anyway, and it kind of just kept you accountable.
It keeps me accountable. That was the word I was looking for. It keeps me in check, make sure I research, and then when it comes to doing my trades or whatever later in the week, I'm like, no, I know everything I'm talking about now.
That's good to hear.
I've studied in.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should come in every week and then you'd be number one in AFL
I think
fantasy.
that's what would happen. I think that's what happened when I used to do the lane kicking with Louis. We were both really good at fantasy.
Yeah, you finished in the top 10 back then, didn't you?
11th.
You won a hat, yeah.
Yeah, and then when we stopped doing that, I dropped it off to like 20,000. So
that's always the case. But anyways, good weekend. I got a few stories, I guess, from out the weekend. So on Saturday, going to the footy, I was walking. I had to catch the train to North Adelaide because my partner and my son were at his soccer game there, and I was going to meet up, and my partner was going to drop me at the footy. And it was really hot. Like it was a pretty hot day on Saturday, and so I was wearing a jumper. Warm. And I was like, I can't wear this jumper to the footy. I'll be sweaty. So I took it off, and I was wearing a Keep League t-shirt. I kind of just forgot I was wearing it, and I was like, I feel like a massive loser, like wearing my own merch to the footy, but I'm not wearing the jumper. It's too hot to wear a jumper, so I'll just, no one's going to see me. It's fine. I get out the car with Misso. About to walk into the Oval, and some dude just comes up to me. He's like, "Love your podcast, mate." And I'm just sitting there wearing a Keeper League t-shirt.
It's so much more known than you'd even understand. I can't even describe the amount of times I'm out places. Yeah, and just random blokes. Out of all things we've done, like out of like any video they could pluck out or anything, and they'll be like, "Man, I remember you saying this on the Keeper League last year, and I traded in that player, and it set up my week." And I'm like,
sweet.
I've had it in Melbourne as well. Over there, someone came to us at MCG once and said, I mean, I don't think I've ever told you that, but
nice. No, I did not know that would be the case.
It's crazy how wide it gets.
Got straight out of the car and then felt like a massive loser because I was wearing Keeper League mine merch to the footy game. But because I've just got so many t-shirts, so they're just white, so I just wear them underneath shit and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so I felt really like not cool, doing that. Felt like a massive loser, but redeemed myself after the game. I was at the merch desk, and my son was like, "Can we check if there's any Connor Rosie badges?" Because they were out last time we were there. And I was like, "Yeah, no worries." And they had Connor Rosie badges, just paying for it. And then behind me, I hear, "Hey, Heff," and turn around and Checkers is walking past in his
looking like even more of a loser
in his Div 12 Resi's get up. But anyway, it turns out the kid behind the desk serving me was one of my ex-students. So I was talking to him for a bit. Saw you say it, and he's like, "Oh my god, is that the Div 12 Resi's guys?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, I love all their gear. Like, do you know them? And I'm like, yeah, I know them. They do podcasts with them and stuff like that. And they're like, so I looked really cool after that because I knew the Div 12 Resi's guys. So yeah, totally redeemed myself.
Speaking about it being warm, I was wearing my long sleeve. I have to commit to it, and it was so warm playing. And then to make it even worse, we were playing an away game, and the rest of our club was playing. I don't know where they were playing home. I don't keep in touch with the ones, I'm sorry. I think they were playing home. Yeah. And we didn't have a trainer and we didn't have water bottles. Yeah. Because obviously they just got left at the club, forgotten about, and we were playing in the parkland, so there was no tap water or anything.
Oh, that's awful.
And all we had was milk. And we had like lots and lots of chalky milk. So I was wearing this long sleeve. It was like, I don't know what the temperature was, but it was warm. Yeah. I was sweating it up, had no water in the morning, just had milk all day, and then had to go to the footy. And the first thing that happens at the footy is I go to the canteen and get more milk, and then I go to get water at the hill at the bar, and they'd sold out of bottled water.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was getting the dizziness going on, but
just more and more milk.
Committing to the fit, committing to the long sleeve.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, so yeah, the Div 12 Resi stuff is obviously going strong, living up to the name, drinking milk while you're playing footy. So yeah. Bloody good to hear you keeping that going.
Lots of milk. We had the premiere out there.
I saw the videos. Yeah, so
I need to get the paper after this. Apparently, it's in the papers today.
Yeah, I did. I saw it actually. So yep, it's in the advertised this week. Just kicking goals, mate. You're a celebrity.
Hey, he kicked a goal. He did. He kicked a goal after having a milk. So.
Oh, that's right. The milk's doing its thing then. All right. Well, we'll actually get stuck into the show. I guess we should probably talk about the mid-season draftees. Went through them on the website, so all the numbers are up there on the website. The only one that really has any fantasy relevant, and that's if he gets a game at all, is probably Mitch Hardy he went to Geelong, I think, but he was at Woodville West Torrens.
Yeah.
He's the only one who had a decent fantasy average, apart from maybe Caleb Poulter.
Poulter and Quinton Narkle could be handy pickups for a keeper league.
Yeah.
I was looking at it as well. I looked through all their stats. So, I mean, they could be handy. They're not going to be anything that you want to be going nuts about and jumping straight in your roster. You probably wait till they get a game, see how they perform, see what role they got. But Mitch Hardy had the good stat sheet.
Yeah, so that's the only really one of note there. Usually there's a bit more to be excited about.
Thinking on the car here is how many of those mid-season draftees have we seen kick into gear in their first 6 months?
Yeah,
most of them. We've obviously got Snelling and John Noble and stuff, but they didn't kick into gear until after they did a full preseason.
Yeah, correct.
So I mean, even then, most of those guys are going to be on the what do they call them? The waiver. Over the off season anyway. So there might be a next year type gig.
Yeah, and then if you're playing keeper leagues like ours, it's virtually impossible to pick them up now anyway because we don't play waivers and things like that as well. So probably ones you just want to have a look at going forward, and then maybe make a decision on them next year. All right, we'll get stuck into the main show, but just quickly we'll mention that this show was brought to you by Game Day Squad. Create, coach, and compete in fantasy football. Basically, if you haven't played it before, you open digital packs to build your team instead of picking players from a player pool. So you get these virtual cards that you can use, and they are unique. They use special technology to make them unique per player, and there's only a finite amount of cards around. But different types of cards have different multipliers, so you can get better fantasy averages and things like that per the car rarity, all that sort of stuff. And you get free cards each week by logging in. So create, coach, compete in fantasy footy with Game Day Squad. It's fun, it's free, it's easy. Head to gamedaysquad.com.au to build your team now. All right, let's get stuck into it. Let's talk about the most relevant keeper league names of the week. Just guys that might be on the rise, guys that are probably undervalued, guys that aren't in the probably top 200 players in terms of fantasy.
Or top 150. What does he have? Top two.
Yeah, Tim Taranto's not in it, whatever it is. So we don't know if we can go by his list. But so anyway, maybe not top 200. It's a bit more looser when we get into the season, but you know what I mean.
Depends what position they're in. Top 200 rucks would be a rogue list.
I think there's less than 50 in the comp, so it might be pretty hard to get that one. I'd have to chuck you in there, I reckon.
Yeah.
All right, first player I want to talk about is Cade Chandler. 80 points. What'd you make of his game on the weekend?
He kicked 3 points.
Yeah,
if he kicked 3 snags, it would have been a ton. It would have been very close to a ton. I think my math's a little bit off.
Yeah,
but he pops up for these games every now and then other games he just doesn't get near it.
Yeah,
it's a bit unfortunate. I mean, you can't really bank on him being consistently. It'd be nice if he just consistently pumped out these 80 to 95 point games, but I think they're a bit, few and far between. So
the role's not great for
that smaller half forward.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if he'll ever get the gig in the midfield either, just because of all the depth they've got in Melbourne. Like Cozzy Pickett, probably the first one to go in there. But I mean, Cade and Bailey Fritsch, they both do it. Both of those forwards, if they kick a small bag, they score well. But if they don't get anywhere near the goals, I mean, it's a low scoring game as well. Melbourne only kicked 8 goals for the game. So
yeah. I tend to agree. That's kind of why I wanted to put it to you, because I feel like I'm asking questions about him every second or third week
when he bobs up.
Yeah, just don't think the consistency is going to be there. Guy who has been bobbing up a bit recently is Brody Kemp. 73 points on the weekend. He's just shown a few signs as that intercept defender. He's had back-to-back 70s, and he also put up a big ton in his first game of this season as well. Does he have some potential, or do you think it's a case of Newman being out, Doherty moving to the midfield?
I mean, he's going to be one for the future, that's no doubt. He was a high draft pick and everything like that. I'm just looking at his intercept marks. I just wonder how many he had. 7 intercept possessions. He had 14 touches and 10 marks.
Yeah.
It's he wasn't finding a lot of the ball other than when he was marking.
Yeah, it just felt like every time they chopped off something, it was Brody. He was in the hands of Brody Kemp.
It'd be real handy if he was linking up for a bit of that cheap ball that we often see Doherty and Newman get, but I just don't think he was getting a lot of the cheap.
Yeah.
You know how Doherty and Newman just sort of do that run through cop a hand pass and a kick.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it was 10 marks for 14 disposals. It was quite a key back type, intercepting role.
Yeah, because I think was he sub a few times as well?
He was sub a few times.
Yeah, so he's had a few low scores in there.
I think he had a couple of high scores as well when he came into the team. So he's been snapped up on a few waivers already.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But then I wouldn't be surprised if he cops a sub game and gets dropped off. So keep an eye on it.
He's a watch for mine as he kind of builds into his career. So just another one to start thinking about. Just want to mention Paddy Dow. The picture's still on the wall behind us. He never actually makes the screen anymore because the camera doesn't go that way. But just want to make note that Carlton actually scored twice as many goals after he came on the ground than he did when he was on. So I reckon there's something in that. Paddy Dow, keep him in there. he's the key.
I was listening to part of that game on the radio on the way home from work. I think I listened to like the first or second quarter.
Yeah.
Then I got home and watched the second half. But on the radio, they were like, someone went off the head knock, and I remember the commentator was like, Paddy Dow's warming up on the boundary line. And I was just like, oh, Christ. I didn't even realise he was named as a sub. But my immediate thought was just Dossie.
The thing is, the crowd, the Carlton fans, really got around him when he was on.
I'm in all the so I join every club's fan group because that's where you get some crazy goss and intel in there just about who didn't train or photos and videos.
Yeah,
from training.
Good idea.
And the Carlton group just love Paddy Dow.
Yeah,
it's so weird. For the fantasy community, hate him.
Yeah,
and the Carlton actual fans, they froth him. They post about him all the time.
Legit got a round of applause, almost standing ovation every time I touch the ball.
Him and David Cunningham.
Yeah.
They just get so much good power. If they play in the VFL, David Cunningham's going to be our greatest player in the future. Why is he not in the ones?
Yeah,
but as a fantasy punter, I'm like, how are these guys still relevant?
Exactly.
No, it's crazy.
Well, anyways, managed to get Paddy down to the show for much longer than I expected to.
There you go, Dossie's in.
Jeremy Finlayson, I want to ask, is he too good for the podcast?
His first quarter was the best quarter of football I think played this year.
Was it 3 goals in the first quarter?
Four goals
first quarter. Yeah.
I missed it. We got there at half time, so I actually haven't seen the first half yet. I want to rewatch it because Jeremy Finlayson's nephew follows us on Instagram. He was messaging us all about it. And then we got there and I was like, he's already kicked 5. What the hell's going on here?
So my son had never seen a soccered goal before. Or maybe he's not paying attention. And he thought it was because he's only 4. He hasn't really watched a heap of footy in his life. He just thought it was the most amazing thing he's ever seen.
So now he's out practicing in the backyard all
day.
After
the game, he's like, I think Jeremy Finlayson could be Port's best player.
He's not far off.
Yeah, and I was like, you're not actually that far off, mate.
It's just what he can do for the team. So, he's definitely too good for the podcast. Just because I think of his positioning as well. So they're forward. Has he got ruck status yet, or is he?
No, I think he started the season with it. So
it's just. So for a classic side, maybe not, but for a keeper league, that's just perfect. That's exactly what you dream for.
He scores me. We usually you have to have 4 big scores, 4 80+ scores in a row, and he always seems to have that one that drops him off. But I don't know. I think he's so important to our structure because he can go into the ruck, all that sort of stuff. He's going to be a pretty handy scorer for the rest of the season. So
it's very similar to Luke Jackson as well. In keeper leagues, he's you like to have that backup ruck on your bench, but by having Finlayson in your forward line, and a ruckman in your ruck, in a keeper league setup, you don't have to have the backup on the bench. It's just it's such a nice setup to have having a forward ruck.
So like I said, I'll tick that one off for 2G4P. We don't have to talk about it too much more. So another guy who kicked 5 goals was Todd Marshall, 103 points. I reckon this one's more of a tip of the cap.
He's had a few off weeks. He had that concussion and it sort of knocked him about a bit. But
I think it was his first week back, wasn't it?
It might have been actually.
Yeah.
But he had a few off weeks with the concussion. So it's I thought he was going to be Coleman Jones this year, but he hasn't quite settled
playing against Hawthorn too.
He's not the biggest body, but he just has that ability to just take some athletic type marks, which I like about Todd Marshall.
And he's kicking more of his goals this season as well. And it's scoring from he's got a pretty good set shot, but he can also kicking from the boundary and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, actually, Trey hates this, but I named the scoreboard pocket Allied Oval the Marshall pocket.
Oh dear.
Because when they played Bulldogs, he kicked the winning goal there in the wet.
Yeah, fair.
And then I'm trying to think the other week with them, it was Paul Essendon, and he kicked a big snag from 45 out from the pocket.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this, and we were filming a vlog at the time, and I was like, Trey, he's in Marshall's pocket, and Trey's like, don't you bloody dare, that's Eddie Betts' pocket. And I was like, no, this is Todd Marshall's pocket now.
At the other end of the ground, my mate had him in a huge multi for first goal when he kicked one from the boundary. I think it was round 1 against Brisbane. Yeah, so he's got
he's pretty good from the boundary. I think he's sneaky.
Yeah, so he can kick a few goals anyway. So he's probably one worth streaming, but I don't love the pick playing in week out. Ollie Wines, a lot of our listeners have been moaning about over the course of this season.
So in every keeper league I've got.
He had 90 points on the weekend, and he's actually had a decent month where I think he's had 4 scores that were 80 or above. Do you think he can ever get back to being that 100-plus average again, or is it just like the kid shot, the Horn Francis, the Rosie, the Butters show these days, and he kind of just complements it?
Most annoying factor here is Porter won 9 in a row.
Yeah.
And normally when a team's winning, like your player will average like 5 to 10 points more or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some data on it, but a winning team, you score more points.
Yeah, got the ball in hand
And
more.
you think Ollie Wines being like Brownlow medalist, main midfielder at Port, 9 games in a row. If that was Patrick Cripps at Carlton and they won 9 in a row, he would be averaging 120 over that period. Or
it
Sam
feels like
Walsh,
he's like 4th string at the moment.
if it was Jordan De Goey at Collingwood and Collingwood were 9 on the trot, you'd expect him to be averaging 110 plus. And it's like, why is Ollie Wines, a guy who I drafted in every league because I thought he's going to come back and average 120, it's dishing me up 50s, 70s and 90. We're celebrating a 90.
Yeah, exactly.
In a game where they were like up by 100 points at half time, you'd think the main midfielder would have gone like 150, we've gone nuts numbers. So I don't know. I don't think he can get back to 100 plus average. No, because in that sort of game sense, in the way that Port dominated Hawthorn, he should have gone nuts.
Yeah, I agree. If that's the best he can put up in a game where it's absolute domination for at least a half of footy anyway, you expect a bigger score.
I think what you said about Rosie and Butters and stuff, obviously, they're from his Brownlow year to now, that Port midfield's looking very different.
Yeah, exactly. So he kind of complements it more than anything, but it's still a handy player to have in our team as a Port Adelaide supporter, but might just not be the fantasy option as we once expected from him. Moving on to Dylan Williams, 78 points. He's been so handy in the classic community just because there was a cheap, I think it was a 200k rookie that people brought on, and he's scoring 70s, 80s, most weeks
very, very
at the moment.
I've got him on field the last few weeks for my classic side.
Do you think he's going to be a consistent fantasy option, or do you think it's just kind of like he's got a bit of a role, he's fitting a kind of hole at the moment, but I don't know, what do you think of him long term?
I love him long term. I didn't rate him. I thought maybe he'd get delisted end of this year. I didn't think he was going to crack it because he got drafted as a forward.
Yep, he's undrafted in our leagues after one ad drop period as well. He's still sitting in the waivers.
Yeah, I'd be picking him up.
I'm hoping to get him, to be honest.
We spoke so much about Kane Farrell in the preseason.
Yep.
And his ball use and the leg he's got. But I mean, Dill Williams, just the footy smarts he's shown in a guy that's only played 8 or 9 AFL games is nuts. What do they call it? The switch across the ground and just the chopping a play, intercepting and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, how the hell he looks so composed. And I mean, it might just be a little bit of small sample size because he's only played a few games and they have won 9 in a row. So, they're playing pretty good footy and he's just playing down back and, reaping the rewards of playing in a winning side. But yeah, no, he's shown unreal footy IQ for someone that hasn't played much time down back.
Yeah, fair assessment. I guess we mentioned earlier, but Quinton Narkle absolutely dominated in the twos.
Score 120
124.
Plus.
Yeah,
so 29 touches.
Yeah,
I spoke to Sam Pepper on the weekend and he was the most excited man I've ever seen in the world about Quinton Narkle.
I saw a clip welcoming him to the club and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I actually was at the Origin on Wednesday and we were watching the draft. I was watching it with Rochelle and Rankin.
Yeah.
I had all the footy players in a row.
Yeah.
And I saw Pau Pepper rock in and just as Narkle got announced, he was like, yeah. Never seen a more excited man. But yeah, I bumped into him after the game and he said, he's like, oh, I'm so bloody keen. He's going to tear up.
Yeah, sick. Well, that's good to know. Hopefully he does.
Well, I mean, Narkle showed so much promise at Geelong.
Yeah. Just depends what his role is. He was a low time on ground player at AFL level, so we'll just have to see
how it goes with Fantasia, Narkle, and Willie Rioli. There's 3 big recruits for Port Adelaide.
And then
in the scheme of
McEntee's
things.
playing his role as well.
McEntee's just dominating.
Yeah.
He's playing very good footy.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Anyway, so we'll move on to some Hawth players. Mitch Lewis, 96 points. He's averaging 80 at the moment. I didn't realise this because he would go with a huge score one week and score 120 type thing and keep the average rolling on. I think he's just going to be one of the key forwards worth owning going forward. So I reckon he's
a very high scoring game in terms of goals, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think after half time we put the cue on the rack a bit and I think it was just kind of let a few players do what they want. But Mitch Lewis has shown a few times that
the fact that he's scoring that well, though, he's put up a few scores like that in a team that's bottom 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine when they do get the kids come through the system a bit and he starts, streaming a few midfielders that kick him the ball really nicely.
Yeah, no, I agree.
When they win more games, he's only going to score better.
Yep. 100%. So, I reckon he's one just to stash for the future if you can, because he'll be a good streaming option or a loophole option in the future. Josh Weddle had 80 points. A lot of junk time scoring for him in this game. He wasn't a great game footy-wise, but it was a good fantasy game, you know what I mean?
I thought he played... I got there at half-time, but his second half, I'm just looking at the stats.
Yeah.
He had 25 touches. To half-time, he only had 7 disposals. So I saw the 18 disposals in the second half.
Yeah.
So 7 in the first half. I get rock over half-time. I was like, geez, Weddle is on fire.
Yeah.
And then I checked the scores and he was only on 80. I was like, oh, I swear this guy's had bloody 40 touches.
It felt like he was amongst it in the first half, but not quite there, and then just got a heap of it later on in the game. He's had a couple good games now, but like there was that one game where he got 2 goals because he was like
2 goals in the first quarter.
Yeah, 50 and then a free kick or something like that ahead of him. So he's been a bit lucky, I think. And then
I like his game sense though. For like he's 191 centimeters. I thought he was going to be like a development player.
I thought he was going to be more of a key.
And it's similar to like Will Day. Like they thought he was going to be like a 2 to 3 year development project, but he's just sort of like these 2 tall, skinny, running. Like he's got legs. Like
he's that rebounding tool kind of.
He's going to be a fantasy option in the future, definitely. When he works it, he gets a 50 games under his belt or so.
Another one to think
If he's
about.
on your waiver, there's actually one I'd be very keen on because I think he'll be like a defensive option for ages.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Dom Sheed had 130 points. Do you reckon he's a player we can rely on now? He's had some massive scores.
We spoke about him last time I was on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I wrote him off. Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. He was playing Collingwood, and I immediately just like, what's it called? Draft Stars. I had a Draft Stars team in. And I chucked him in there just because of the Dom Sheed Collingwood factor.
Yeah.
I was just looking for one more midfielder.
Like the grand final, I guess.
It's just like something about Dom Sheed playing Collingwood, isn't there?
Yeah. Is he back? What is he, 28? So he's still probably got a good few years ahead of him. He's probably like the key pillar in that midfield at the moment.
You think about like Gaff probably finishes up, probably finishes up, Shui probably finishes up. So it'd be like Dom Sheed, Tim Kelly, and then maybe a heap of the young guys in that midfield.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I think he's
probably goes to becoming their number 1 midfielder next year or in the next 2 years.
He's probably someone you could target as like if he's in a struggling team that's kind of down the ladder a bit. He's probably one you can probably target for some kids or some draft picks or something like that for the future to give you a real crack at the finals, I reckon. So he's just one to think about because I think he's shown enough now to kind of be trusted a bit more with some good scores. Alex Witherden had 101 points. Like he's technically too good for the podcast.
Yeah, he's had a good couple of weeks now.
Yeah. Well, every time Hearn goes down, he scores well.
Massively,
So I think Hearn's done the hamstring.
I even think earlier in the year, so he was playing with Hearn this week, but Hearn was out for a couple of weeks, was it?
Yep.
And earlier in the year when Hearn went down injured, he even like took over the kickouts. I remember looking at kick-out stats. It was like Hearn took all the kickouts in the first half, got injured, and then as soon as Hearn went off with it, then took like 90% of the kickouts. So he's pretty much a like for like for Shannon Hearn, isn't he? It's like,
when Hearn's out, he goes big. So it's a bit of a stream him while he's on or play him while he's on, and expect him to go big. Another guy who's on at the moment is Elliot Yeo. He had 94 points. I think he's just back to being too good for the podcast. If he can just stay fit, he's back in the midfield, scoring well. It's listed as a defender. I think he's going to be snapped up on most lists, so not much point talking about him. Another guy who's too good for the podcast, I reckon, is Bailey Williams. 87 points again. He just keeps scoring and scoring and scoring. I think we technically did it last week, but just kind of confirmed it again. Coming against the dual ruck matchup of Cameron and Cox, scored pretty well.
And his hit-outs suck. He gets touted in that sense a bit.
Yeah. Around the ground,
but
though.
I mean, he's there only ruckman. He just competes all day. Like he's a guy that just puts in his effort, puts in effort. So I mean, I've got him in a few leagues. He's pretty handy. He's dishing up like 70s, 80s, the occasional ton when he plays a ruckman. He can win a few more hitouts against. Obviously, that was a hard matchup, like you said, dual prong ruck attack. But if they got a fixture where like they've only got like one ruckman or he's playing a lesser known ruck, then he's probably good for like a 90 to a ton. So definitely too good for the podcast.
Yeah, no, he's scoring too well. Moving on to some Collingwood players. Brody Myercheck, 98 points. 3 goals, 14 kicks, 11 marks. Probably a tip of the cap, but he just pops up every now and then with games like this.
I mean, they win by 63 points. They're playing West Coast. Like you would have predicted that a few of their forwards would have been on the scoreboard and scored pretty well this week as well. When top side plays the bottom side.
Yeah.
Yeah, predict Brody Myercheck would have had a little bit of an increase.
Yeah, that's true. Fair point. Mason Cox, just moving on to some more Collingwood players, he had 94 points. I think it's just good to see him playing that kind of forward with backup ruck role, still getting 20 or so hitouts and scoring well. I wasn't sure how they'd go in the side together, Cameron and Cox that is, but they're scoring well. So he's probably one you could probably think about streaming in your forward line. When you agree?
Before what did he have the injury? It was a neck injury or something, was it?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Well, early in the year, I thought he was like slaying. I was like, Mason Cox finally cracked it. He's like, 31 or 32 years old though.
Yeah.
But I was like, obviously coming from the background he's come from America, like takes a while for people to find their feet in the AFL, probably that 50 to 70 game mark. And he's finally at that mark. And he's just like, I thought it was like, this guy's finally found his feet. Like he's slaying, like 210 centimetre athletic beast. Did the injury, but when Cameron was outside, he took the number 1 ruck role.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just spoke about they were playing Bailey Williams, so he's going to have a bit of a boost in the hitouts. But I think Mason Cox at that point in his career where he's finally, he's found out how to play footy. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of taken a while, but yeah.
it's unusual because we don't expect 31-year-olds to sort of be hitting their peak. But this is his peak.
All right. Let's move on to the next game. Oscar Baker from the Western Bulldogs versus Geelong game. He had 97 points. He's actually played every game this year. He's just been a bit inconsistent. I think that's given the nature of his role being a wing. And in this game, it was probably no different. It's just that he was on Mitch Nevitt, who's a bit inexperienced, who also scored well himself. But they kind of just did what they want all game. So, the game just doesn't suit wingers right now. So, whilst Oscar Baker pops up every 3 or 4 weeks with a good score, he's just not one to be trusted, I don't think.
It's crazy how he's played every game, eh? Especially the players he's kept out of the side. Like,
especially considering
McLean, Riley West, like the amount of players he could put on that wing.
And they traded Lockie Hunter as well, so... it's crazy that they did that.
He's come in. He couldn't get a gig at Melbourne, but he's come in and just filled the role very nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't know to predict that at the start of the year. I thought he would have just played twos most of the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to him. That's very.
Moving on to some Geelong players. Tanner Bruhn had 100 points. He's firmly in that midfield mix at the moment. I know Dangerfield's out. Guthrie's still TBC on the injury list if he returns at all this season. I'm not really sure what is going on there because Geelong's injury list
is bloody crook.
Yeah, yes, you can't trust it.
Yeah, what do they write? And everyone else puts weeks.
Short term, long term.
Short term,
or
long term,
TBC,
intermediate or whatever. It's like, just give us the weeks, man.
Or like there'll be footage of players like, on crutches or whatever and they won't even be on the injury list.
Can you imagine if Melbourne did that and like Clayton Oliver's like, what, a 2-week injury and they just put like short term injury?
Yeah.
Imagine the meltdown the media would have about that.
Like, 100%. So, I don't know, I think Cam from Draft Doctors is, like, he's a Geelong supporter, but he's been calling out their shithousery on Twitter and trying to get the fans to kind of rally against him to do it properly. So, get on board that.
AFL should call him out.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We need the weeks.
Yeah, it affects everything.
It's it's not even just for fantasy realms. Like, I remember when before I played fantasy, I used to look up that stuff just as like a fan. I'd be like, sweet, we've got this fixture coming up and, we'll have Cam Guthrie back for that, like.
It's probably a lesser thing, but it does affect like the punting as well. And not that I really give a shit about punting, but there's a lot of people out there that do.
Oh, it's just like, if you're an AFL fan, that's pretty vital data, like in terms of like when you read the news. If you're going to read the news every week,
but also, going back to the punting, it's like that's their like major sponsors of like all the AFL teams as well. Like, it's a huge revenue source for them. So like they're kind of stuffing around with it. So it makes sense that the Geelong actually, this AFL called Geelong out on it and get them to sort it out. But
we want to see the weeks. We want to see if anyone from the AFL's watching, we want to see the weeks. Put on Geelong's injury list next week. How
do you think Tanner Bruhn scores if Dangerfield comes back in the next game or whatever?
It's hard, isn't it? Because when they had Dangerfield went down and Tanner Bruhn that game and he went straight in the midfield and it sort of like exploded. Yeah, it's definitely a like for like. Like, Tanner Bruhn's going to be such a good option for the future. I think he's got so much like prospects, but until we see Guthrie and Dangerfield hang up the boots or commit to a full-time forward role or whatever, then we're not going to see him like consistently, or I'm not going to have faith in him to consistently score.
A little bit disappointing because you've got this season where he's got forward status. And he's probably not going to have it, so you're probably not going to be able to reap the rewards of it.
And he's going to be like a gross price for classic owners. He's going to be mostly picked up by people, and he's like, I missed the boat on that one. But
correct, yeah. No, I think I started with him in classic, but traded him out after the first week. So yeah. Anyways, Graham Myers had 97 points. He kicked one goal, but I think Geelong, especially early on, they were a bit kind of picky with how they went forward. They'd kind of chip around and wait until they found an option and things like that. And he got involved in a few of those marks. I think he had, I didn't write it down, but I think he had a lot of marks. I think it was 7 or so marks in that game. 8 marks in that game. So yeah. They just chipped it kind of around the edge of their forward line looking for an option, so he reaped the rewards.
Pretty handy. He had a handy back half of last year in draft schemes as well. Like, he just consistently was dishing out like 80s to 90s. Didn't really have any bad games.
Yeah. Now, he could be one if you're super desperate for
Doesn't have a massive ceiling, but he's like what we've talked about heaps of times in the past, is like that consistent scoring.
That's what you need. Yeah. Mitch Nevitt mentioned him before, but 91 points. He was on the wing and kind of rotating forward a little bit as well. I think he kicked a goal in there, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, goal.
Got a goal in there too. So push deep both ways.
7 tackles. That's good.
That helps out, doesn't it?
That's very good.
Yeah, just push deep both ways. Like, he was laying those tackles in defence and stuff like that as well. So he was pushing all the way back and kind of just getting involved in the play. So he was actually pretty instrumental in their win, I think, as well. So he's going to be sticking around, I reckon, as one of those outside types.
I was tossing up in my classic trades between the Irish guy, what's his name? Oyce Mullen.
Yeah.
Or Nevitt. They're both similar price, and I bloody chose Oyce Mullen. Missed out on the Nevitt train. I didn't think he'd get a gig in the midfield. I thought Geelong midfielders, it's a pretty hard gig to get it. If Charlie Constable couldn't get a gig all those years, I thought, then why would this guy get a gig?
Same. Well, I found that outside role, I guess, and just going okay.
It looks pretty good.
Moving on to the Crows game, not a lot to talk about here. The main takeaway is just don't stream players playing in Darwin because there's stuff all fantasy scoring going on.
Today there was an article. Gold Coast as a team averaged 100 points less. In Darwin, which in the scheme of things, think about it this way: so Gold Coast haven't won many games this year. They won both those games. So really, in a 2 winning side, you'd think they would average like 100 points more than what they have every single year. So really, it's like a 200 point less
deficit.
Really, that's crazy that they average 100 point less in 2 wins.
Well, one guy that laps up the Darwin condition, though, is Jack Lukosius. He had 95
10
points
10 goals
again.
in 2 weeks.
Exactly. He's just the Darwin specialist.
Last week he didn't score too well for his 5 goals. You talking about the soccer goals as well with your son.
He loves soccer goals.
Out of those 10 goals, how many of them have been soccers off the floor?
Yeah, exactly. Right
He's been getting loose. He's so fluid.
Or he's been running back to goal as well. And then, it's kind of, works hard both ways because he does line up on the wing from time to time as well. But anyway, I still think he's a go long term as a key forward. Could average probably an 80 somewhere along in his career.
Well, we all knew his scoring off the halfback was unreal, but now that his actual scoring as a forward, people were like, when he went up forward, his scoring went gross. It was like 40, scoring 40s, and everyone just dropped him off the wave. It was like, this guy's done. He's going to be useless for fantasy. But now he's shown he could actually be like a Nick Riewoldt or a Matty Richmond back in the day. Have those 15, 20 touches and just get on the scoreboard.
Yep. No, I still he's going to be up and down, but he's definitely going to be one of the better key forwards for fantasy scoring. So definitely want to stash away. Joel Jeffrey at 70 points this week. Just a good role on the halfback line. It's sticking around, and I think to score 75 in those conditions where there's not much fantasy scoring going on, I'm keen to see him just on like a dry ground, like a Marvel Stadium or something like that, playing this role.
Definitely. All the defenders at Gold Coast, Darcy McPherson's been slaying this year. We had everyone that got on the Atkins train, everyone that was riding willpower, they all had 2 really gross weeks.
Exactly. Awful.
Those rebound defenders. So Joel Jeffrey, what he scores 75 was probably worth a ton in any other condition. The way that defenders were scoring on the weekend,
and they don't need him forward with Casbolt, King, Lukosius. I think they've got another
Bailey Humphrey.
They've got another key forward coming in the draft next year apparently as well. So I think they're probably trying to find a different home for him.
Sam Day played a game. What did he play on the weekend? He played the other week.
I'm not sure.
I didn't know. I didn't even remember Sam Day was on their list. I just saw him pop up, and I was like, how the hell is Sam Day going to gig in a 4-line with Lukosius and King? I was like,
All right, we'll move on to the Sunday games. Callan Ward, 134 points. I didn't see a second of this game, so I'm not really sure what happened.
I watched a bit of it. Yeah, he just wound back the clock. It was vintage Callan Ward.
Yeah. Well, they almost had a win,
I don't expect it every week. It was pretty crazy.
Is it just like
I think it was Kelly was out. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he just found his spot back in the midfield and it just stepped up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need someone to do a job in the midfield and you're a player short and Callan Ward's in your team, you'd be pretty up and about because
absolutely.
It's a bit like Trent Cotchin at Carlton. If they find their old role back and then you're pretty consistent, they know how to play footy.
He's always taken early in the redrafts, when you pick up your players for next season, that sot of stuff, because he always gets put back to the pool, but he always scores pretty well.
Does he have any DPP on him?
I think he does at the moment.
If he has a DPP on him, that'd be unreal. He would definitely be I don't know how old he is. I'll just double check that.
Probably close to retiring. I think he's 33.
Yeah, okay. I thought if he was 31, maybe he gets a DPP because he's
close to being done.
Would be handy as forward or a halfback flanker, especially with the injuries that we've seen. Kelly and who's Ellen Whitfield so injury prone.
Yeah, correct. All right, Kieran Briggs. Can we make him too good for the podcast?
I actually considered trading him into my classic side.
I think Kays did actually. And I'm
a bit upset I didn't do it. I would have. I was like, I could just trade him for a couple of weeks and just get a bit of cash gen out of him.
I brought in Darcy Cameron just because of the DPP, because then I can flick him forward when Marshall and English are playing.
The only other thing is Braden Perouse is he 4 weeks away or something?
That's the thing. Well, he's still TBC on the injury list, so he was close to returning, and then he did something else.
Okay, well, we know Braden Perouse's injury history, but who's their preferred ruck? Because Kieran Briggs is playing pretty good footy right now.
Yeah.
When Braden Perouse is available selection, that's going to be a bit of a headache for...
But even when he comes back, Perouse is going to need 2 or 3 weeks in the twos as well. So I think he's going to be around for at least another month.
Does Kieran Briggs overjump Braden Perouse in the rankings at GWS rucks at the moment? The way he's playing footy, he definitely was on par, if not better than Toby Nankervis, who's would probably top 5 talent ruckman in the comp. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he's on fire at the moment.
Interesting to see what happens
So
there.
too good for the podcast because anyone who owns him would be very happy right now. I think he is also available in the mid-season draft I'm doing right now, but I have the last pick because I'm sitting top, so I doubt I'm going to get him. But anyway, Toby Bedford had 92 points. Apparently played on Rioli, which could have led him to the ball a little bit. I'm not really sure, but he had 9 tackles in a
He's
goal.
actually had an unreal game.
Yeah.
Like, what he kicked 1 goal, but he had like 5 or 6 score involvements.
Yeah, and a lot of tackles by looks.
And he's just like, yeah, I was impressed. I've watched him a little bit this year because I did just like, GBS traded for him, and I just didn't think he would be like a great option. I was like, why do they want Toby Bedford? That's just a bit unusual out of the box. But yeah, no, that was his best game he's played at GBS for sure.
Yeah, no.
He had 19 disposals, kicked 2, got 1 goal, 2, and had like 6 score involvements. Like he was very fluid up forward. Yeah.
Yeah, he's had a few games where he played in the midfield. I don't know, it's probably, I don't know, because everyone's like talking about Brent Daniels.
Brent Daniels' hamstring.
Yeah, injury.
Yeah.
Could he receive a bump there? And so I don't really know.
Maybe. Brent Daniels went off pretty early in the game as well, didn't he? It was
Yeah.
like second quarter.
Yeah, it was, but it's, I don't know, he just sometimes seems to get roles and he could be one that kind of just steps up in his absence. I don't really know. Who was the other ones? So that's all for the GWS Giants. Let's move on to some Tigers. Not like here. Jack Rewell, 105 points. He's kicked 5 goals. I'm not really considering him given his
Well, the
age.
AFL run their article as Jack's back or something, or Jack
geez.
can play another 3 years or
Oh,
something.
dear.
I thought it would be Jack's last year.
Yeah,
He's
so
doing
did I.
heaps more media time, and when they start doing heaps more media time, you know that they're on their last legs.
Yep, it's generally, a good sign. And the other one on this list is Camden McIntosh. Plays on the wing, puts up good scores from time to time, but not consistent enough these days.
There's a few at Richmond like that they could just start consistent, like McIntosh, Nathan Broad.
Yeah.
They sort of just float in and out of people's waivers. I see them like picked up for 3 weeks and they have their bad game, they get dropped off. They'd probably like spend their time in almost everyone's team in my leagues.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, I had Camden McIntosh for a week. I had Nathan Broad for a week. I think Louis had them both for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
They get passed around a fair bit.
Yeah, they can do things that, put up some decent scores from time to time, but you pick them up after one good score and then they do nothing for a few weeks and you drop them.
And then they go back to the wave.
Exactly. Actually, there's a few more GWS players here. Xavier Halloran just keeps bobbing up with some good scores. Kind of plays on the wing and then goes forward, but can also play as a bit of an extra inside as well. He kicks a few goals from week to week. So
It reminds me a bit of Cam Zerha.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just
Yeah,
like massive, big bull body, and he hits the footy so hard, but he just hasn't had his crack in the midfield yet. And it's like if he's got more of an engine room than Zerha has, and he's actually going to go places. I mean, Zerha we know how good he'd be if he could play full-time mid. Like
with injuries, like they have rotated a few like him through there. But this week, Finn Callahan's the other one. He got 15 CBAs this week as well. So he had 85 points. So again, he's usually on the outside as well.
He's been very consistent the last few weeks as well. Like the last 5 weeks, I think he's just been popping up with like some nice 75, 85 type scores.
Yeah. Yeah, those kind of younger GWS players are just worth looking at as well. Jai Caldwell, moving on to the last game of the round. So he's scored 107 points. He's another guy who's having a really good patch at the moment. Do you reckon this is all because of Parrish and it just goes away when Parrish comes back?
Parrish out. Yeah, we've seen a bump in Caldwell. We've seen a bump in, what did they say? Nick Martin's the most improved player of like the last 5 weeks or something.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
About that.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of. Oh, I guess with Setterfield. Oh,
yeah, Setterfield and Parrish moved out, and then all these young kids are getting a bit of a run. So they're like, I saw an article on Archie Perkins written last week as well about how he's improved or whatever. It was like, that seems to be the key topic of the Essendon media lately. But
so Caldwell probably drops away when Parrish comes back.
I'd say so.
Listed as a forward, you just got to ride it while he's out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably already picked up in most people's leagues.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty handy if you've got him. I'd put him on field rather than have him on the bench like I would have had earlier in the year.
Yeah, I've started to field him now, which is kind of nice. Archie Perkins, we just mentioned, he had 87 points. We talk about him every week, though, because he's just such an almost there. He will get there one day, though, so we should probably just stop talking about him. Ben Hobbs, I'm still unsure how he goes when everyone's fit in the same kind of way with, Parrish. I think Shield got subbed out, Setterfield's out. There's still a fair few people missing for the Essendon midfield, but he scored 86 again. Like, he's just so consistent.
He's definitely a player for the future. Like, if he's not on a waiver, if he's on a waiver, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah. No, I've got to make him too good for the podcast. He's had 480 plus scores in a row. So
he pushed Setterfield out of the midfield before Setterfield's injury as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I think they've already worked out he's one for the future and put as much game time into him as you can.
Yep, I agree. Moving on to some North Melbourne players, Will Phillips has had back-to-back good scores, had 90 points this week. I guess with LDU out at the moment, he's kind of the guy who's kind of stepped in. LDU returns next week, but they've lost Greenwood, they've lost, who's the other one? They lost Simpkin. So there's going to be a few spots up in that midfield, so I think he sticks around for the next few weeks. He's another one I think he's floating around on waiver wires as well. So.
Well, we say the other week, the Brett Ratton taking over as well, just expect like maybe some of the kids get a bit more of a push push or like
Yeah.
a bit of a shuffle in who's the preferred kid here and there. Didn't Tom Power have a very average game as well?
I think he came off he was a sub, so he
Okay.
came on at half time,
Alright.
I think it was. I think it was. But so yeah, he might be one that actually gets bumped up though. So you might be able to check his time on
fair
ground.
enough.
there,
Even
but
like
yeah.
this week we saw Taron Thomas return, and then like with the new coach, like some things just happened there. Some some shuffle in the order of who they rate.
Yep.
Obviously, who Clarko rates versus Tom Power had 21 points. Probably looks like
Yeah,
he was a sub.
He was a sub, yeah.
But yeah, who Clarko rates versus who Brett Ratton rates could change.
Yep. No, I think that could be the case as well. Darcy Tucker, 90 points.
This is one I've got in my notes. This is, I mean, there's probably more research to be done or more data to be had, but this is one that Trey brought to my attention a few weeks ago, is that teams that play Essendon, the player that's like the loose chip kick player just slays.
Yeah, okay.
Slays. Like the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
To the point. So it started Trey brought to my attention the week, Essendon played Port, and I put Dill Williams on the field.
Yeah.
And that was his first breakout game. He scored like 80 something or 92.
Yeah.
He had a heap of cheap kicks. The next week he captained Jaden Hunt.
No way.
And I don't know if it was next week or the week after, but Jaden Hunt scored 132.
Okay. Yep.
And like Jaden Hunt, the guy's averaging 75. I was like, Trey, you're crazy for captaining Jaden Hunt. But he had like a VC on it. It failed. He's like, I'm just going to roll Jaden Hunt on the Sunday game.
Yeah.
And Jaden Hunt slayed. So like the winger / running type, I don't know what it is. They just don't have. Essendon don't have a defensive forward that locks down or something that it clamps down.
Yeah.
But this week I was looking through the list. I was like, I brought in Bailey Scott because I was like, he plays wing.
Yeah.
A bit of a running type.
Yeah.
I was looking at Luke McDonald scored well. Aaron Hall scored well. Darcy Tucker scored well, which is a name we just wouldn't have expected. Like, would not have been on the realms of like he's going to go well. But he had a good game. The one that Trey was writing was he thought Harry Sheezel would slay, but we saw Sheezel spend a little bit of time up forward. I don't know whether he got clamped down as well. Like,
yeah, I think there was some attention getting Port team, and just plus Aaron Hall being on the side, and Z.
But like, I mean,
share points.
Essendon play Carlton next week, so I want to ride this one out and see which player from Carlton gets the bump. I don't know whether. I mean, they've obviously already got a couple good fantasy types like Doherty and maybe Chincotta if he gets a gig.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe more of a halfback flanker or an outside
if
type. If
Chincotta gets a gig, that'd be pretty handy. If Nick Newman's back, I'm trying to think who would get a gig in that sort of rebound defender. But I want to put one down. Brody Kemp next week.
Okay.
I'm going to ride him. I'm going to say he has a good game, and if he doesn't, then you can slap me in the face.
We'll come back to that next week. Last and probably least in some people's eyes is Taron Thomas. First game back after all the off-field issues. Scored 82 points. Got a heap of time in that midfield. I mentioned all the outs for North Melbourne's midfield at the moment.
He looks exciting though.
Yeah, he did. So
like for a guy that's had everything go on, probably hasn't trained as much as he should have. Like, everything that's happened in that guy's head, he actually just looked like Taron Thomas of last year.
Correct. Yeah. So I don't know. He's definitely one to consider from a fantasy perspective. If he's someone you want to get into your side, he was under the 40% owned threshold this week for the waivers. So he's definitely one to consider because he's available in a lot of leagues, and we just know the type of player he is and the fantasy player he can be.
Right, he would have been like a 2nd to 3rd round draft pick before all the
absolutely.
The off-field drama came out. I saw him getting picked up very early in people's draft leagues this year.
And listed as a forward too is just that little bit extra. But yeah. Anyways, that's all the players we're talking about this week. We'll just kind of mention the membership program we've got going on our website, keeperleaguepod.com.au. Basically, if you wish to support the podcast, you can do so by becoming a member of the podcast, and just a way of saying thank you for those who sign up. We've just got a few things on our website that are behind a paywall for members only, including our CBA analysis numbers, our kick-in analysis numbers, State League fantasy scores are all organised nicely for you, and the breakout tracker just to see where the young players compare against the best in the comp in the same time in their careers. So thank you to the following gold members: Luke Richardson, Michael Paul, Nick Wall, Aidan McCrosty, Doss, the superior Doss he calls himself, one of my old footy mates. Thanks for signing up there, Doss. Kieran Sankey, another guy I used to play footy against, actually, back in the day. There's a few mates there. Well, I don't really know Kieran Sankey very well, but I just remember he was a gun back in juniors. Lee Whiting, Toby Littlejohn Lyons, Michael Crimbo, Stephen Beverley, and Will Mattock. So thank you to those who have signed up as a member. All right, we're going to get through the last bit pretty quickly, I reckon, because less games, shorter pod, and let's get stuck into listener questions. At Nathan Byrne is asking, is Zorko worth having for a team going for it? I'm assuming he means going for the flag. Or is his injury history too long and should trade him out now with his 83 average? What would your thoughts be? Would you chase him if you didn't have him, and would you trade him if you did own him?
He has not even crossed my thoughts this year.
Yep.
So, if you can get any value from him, I'd trade him. I think you could probably pick up another player who has better prospects in a trade realm. You could probably swindle someone in your league who is going for a flag as well.
Yep.
And you could almost double play here, trade him to someone who's going for a flag, try pick up a young kid who you think might average well in the back half of the year.
And trade that kid
and
off
then
something
just
better.
pray that Zorka gets injured and ruins that guy's year as well.
I don't mind it because I think given Brisbane are probably, they're probably, for mine, probably one of the top 2 teams who could win the flag this year. He's going to do everything he can to remain fit and firing.
That's true. I think just his injury history and it just has not crossed my mind.
I have no doubt say he'll miss another game or 2 this season through injury, but you can hopefully weather that kind of storm when it happens, and then he's playing the final 2 rounds of the season where they're trying to get ready for finals, and puts up a few massive scores. So I would go for it. It's the type of trade that would win a flag, and you've just got to take that punt sometimes. So no one that's worth it. At Jinby and Tonic asks, is Sonsi worth holding in a dynasty? Seems like he's out of favour. We talked about new coaches and stuff coming in. Do you think he could be someone who gets a run soon, a bit more frequently? He could come in for a Camden McIntosh or something like that.
That was the second week of the new coach.
Yeah.
I mean, Richmond won on the weekend, but they definitely were talking about like a rebuilding phase towards the end of this year. There was the whole point. It was like McQualter's in. You got to play some of the kids, get some of the kids some game times. When they get the new coach next year, they're good. It's already you've started the rebuild for next year already.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Don't waste the back half of this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a gig in the back half of the year. That's one thing I definitely was thinking about today with all these buys. Is like thinking. I was just trying to think of some players that probably are due to get some minutes, whether they're playing for a contract, whether they're kids coming through the system. But we always see in the back half of the year more debutants. Kids get blooded, especially as soon as teams start to write themselves off out of the finals.
I agree.
Which I think will be Richmond pretty soon. In a couple of weeks, they'll be well and truly written off out of finals.
I think they're just trying to probably save a little bit of face because they were talking flags and stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to you don't want to get pumped. After the drama of losing a coach as well. So win a few games, that's cool. And then once your season's written off, get the kids in.
With a player like Sonsi, because he's given his second year in the system, he's definitely.
I thought he had pretty good prospects last year. He looked pretty tidy in the games he played.
So it's not that he's out of favour. He's probably just not quite there yet, more than anything. The thing is, in my dynasty league, would I, because we got a mid-season draft and I've got the opportunity of bringing, say, someone like Briggs in or something like that with my team, Sonsi would definitely go because if he was like he'd be the last. He'd be the last.
I wouldn't be chasing him, but if you've got him and you've got the ability to hold him, I think. Yeah, I mean, he debuted in the back half of second year as well last year, didn't he? As well, like I'm saying, the back half of the year is when we see the kids get more game time. So just hold faith for that.
I reckon so. Yeah, if you can afford to and you've got nothing else to do, then just keep him on there. Richard Eliadis has got a good one here. Now I'm going to try to read this. 2022 Himmelberg was backing his back scores, but is he back as a back, or with Haynes back, does he go backwards to being a forward and not a back? So essentially,
my brain melts.
Does Himmelberg's technically a 2G4P player, so we didn't talk about him before on the podcast, but Himmelberg played in the back line again and scored really well. But is this short-lived because Haynes is coming back? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably short-lived because Haynes came back. Haynes probably the better ball user, and he's played pretty good footy this year. So
they are running Cadman and Hogan up there, so they're kind of not short, but I think they like playing the third one up there. So
you'd be praying. I mean, Himmelberg, did he sign on? Is that? I haven't seen him immediately, but wasn't he a contract year or a free agent year?
Not sure. Yeah.
There's a bit of talk about the free agent year. I imagine if he goes to a team and gets a full-time centre-half back role, you'd be like, 100 plus average, thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's it. So hopefully he can do that. But I don't know. It's just because I think he's a little bit wasted as a halfback flanker because key forwards are probably just a little bit harder to come by. Or just, that intercepting role. But I don't know. The thing is, you just can't trust him from week to week, so it's probably just not worth worrying about too much and just riding it if you've got him. And then if you don't have him, probably just watch him a bit more before you're sure about trading him in. At Arnhem Mikey is asking, where do we rank Briggs? Is he going to be a top 5 ruck this season? On average, do you think he finishes the season as a top 5 ruck? I think he's almost there now, averaging 100 and something.
Marshall, English, then Curvis. I'd say Witts probably pushes him out. And then Brian. It's probably about 6 to 8, I reckon, on the list. Yeah. But, I mean, to the fact I was considering to bring in my classic side the other week just for a bit of cash gen. Yeah. What we were saying before is if it just depends when Braden Bruce is fit, because I don't it's hard to rank himself over ruck if he's only going to play like 8 weeks, and then Braden Bruce takes his role when he's fit.
Yeah, correct. We're just going to see what happens with
Bruce.
that. Yeah.
If Bruce gets ruled out for the year, but Bruce is definitely in. But
you've got to make the punt now, though, and he's definitely worth taking that punt on, given what we've seen so far.
even just for cash gen options, like the bloke's dishing up good juicy tons. So he's cheap, so...
Yep. And Joe Downey wants to know about Quinton Narkle. How does he fit in with that midfield depth? Was he a long-term selection? We've kind of talked about that. I think if he comes in, he doesn't play a pure midfield role.
He plays like a half forward.
Yeah.
I honestly reckon what they've done is because now they're in flag contention. Like they've won 9 on the trot.
Yeah.
You've got Fantasia with all his injury issues.
Yeah. If someone gets injured, he's probably next one in.
Then you got Willie Rioli, who like has been suspended, has had a few injury issues. Like imagine if you get to the finals, you Port Adelaide, Fantasia's injured, Willie goes down, you're like, shit, we needed someone to come in.
Yeah.
Quinn Narkle, thanks for coming. So that's what we usually see with the top 8 sides in the mid-season draft is they try to pick a position that they're lacking and they pick a ready-made player to come in. Geelong's done it.
Stacking depth.
Pick up a ready-made mature player. All the teams that are bottom 8 pick up the young kids in the mid-season. So
I'm not expecting big fancy things from him when he does play.
I think he's depth for like that finals injury.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that pretty much brings the show to an end. So thanks, Checkers, for coming on. Anything you want to plug at the moment?
No, not overly. Just
get around
usual
Marmalade at Marmalade_Oz on TikTok and Instagram and follow all your shenanigans. You'll be at the Crows game this week.
We're going to Samful Port Magpies game first. We're doing a longest kick at half time.
Oh, cool.
I'm actually wearing my footy socks right now because we just came from a video where I was in full kit.
Yeah.
I've been wearing that kit more than anything lately.
Is that your Lockley's kit?
Lockley's long sleeve.
Nice. Do you have to wash your own kits these days?
I bought my long sleeve.
Okay.
Strays uses one out of the kit bag, so he doesn't have to wash it, but I bring mine home.
Yeah, I thought that might be since
quite a process as well because it's covered in milk, so it stinks. Like you have to use a fair bit of fabric softeners and like it's a bit of a process, but Samful, we'll go to Samful this week, and then I'll probably go to the Crows game afterwards as well.
All right, we'll say good day to Checkers if you are around at either of those. But get around us on our socials at Keeper League Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And also, get around our sponsors, Game Day Squad. Make a team if you haven't done so already. And see how we track in that one. And also, if you want to support the podcast, please consider becoming a member. There's a link to that in the description if you're keen to sign up. Anyways, thanks once again, Checkers, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
See ya, stream.